what has come out? So Edward Snowden, and I'll just say right off the bat, I think Edward Snowden, you know, I don't have a problem with him being charged with something, okay, like theft of a document, whatever. But he's getting charged with espionage, which even by, and this is according, first of all, to the 1917 Espionage Act, which probably many listeners of the show will be aware is a just horrible piece of legislation. The whole impetus of that legislation basically was to criminalize dissent during World War I. It's a really awful piece of legislation. And even within that awful piece of legislation, it's not clear to me, and again, being really agnostic about, and I'll get into, there's some things that Edward Snowden's done I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not, I don't see how anything he's done, even according to the most draconian definition of espionage, well, maybe according to the most draconian definition of espionage, because that's what's being used. But I don't get how it is. He didn't sell documents to a foreign country. He didn't.
Which he could have.
He could have. He could have smuggled them. He could have. He could have profited immensely. And this brings us to a bigger problem, which is that in charging Snowden with espionage, the Obama administration has added to its count of people that it's charged with espionage, and it's the 8th person to be given this charge, and that is more than any other administration has ever attempted to use this charge since the law was passed in 1917. Basically, I'm just going to read this here. Yeah, this is from Slate. Prior to the Obama administration, only 3 people who leaked information have been charged with the 1917 statute that was never really intended for leakers. Although I don't know. The arguments that Obama uses now to use that statute to go after those who reveal information were first brought up by Ronald Reagan's administration when went after a Navy civilian analyst who leaked photographs to a British military magazine. But now the practice has become more widespread. Obviously, this is a big problem, and there's 2 reasons it's a big problem if you look specifically at the Obama administration. One is, I think, just like Matt mentioned, the whole backdrop of these questions of leaks and whistleblowing is that if the Obama administration, it would still be a problem from the standpoint of investigative journalism and government accountability if they were as kind of far-reaching as they've been in their use of these statutes and in going after whistleblowers to begin with. But what compounds the problem is that the administration, just like Matt said, and we don't know who leaked this thing about Snowden's passport, but when you get to stories about successful U.S. Foreign policies that are classified, like Stuxnet, like specifics of the bin Laden raid, certainly people senior within the Obama administration have been quite happy and quite content to leak to their preferred journalists and get their story out there. So that is a whole other aspect of this problem, is just how selective the entire process is and what a sort of stunning double standard there is. And this includes, and by the way, even to make the artificial distinction that, what someone like Snowden does has jeopardized U.S. security, and the leaks that that people in the Obama administration hasn't, because that's not necessarily the case. When it emerged, that the CIA had used a fake polio vaccine program in Pakistan as part of their path to getting bin Laden, it's at the very least hurt public health efforts in Pakistan. And actually, a couple weeks ago, a couple of AIDS workers were tragically killed doing that work in Pakistan. So that's one really big problem, is the selectivity around the leaks. And I think the other thing, and this is just, this is speculative, but I think it's reflected across the board in the Obama administration's approach to this, is this real, it seems to me, a dangerous confusion of campaigning with national security and governance. Because, the Obama campaigns have always ran very effective campaigns. They prided themselves on low drama. They had zero tolerance for leaks or infighting, and that served them well politically. And now that same mentality is being brought into government. And it's a really big problem, and it's reflected in the uses of the Espionage Act, and it's reflected in the double standard around leaks, because that literally, I mean, you know, that is literally, that's an, again, we keep seeing all these parallels. If you work at HSBC and you launder money for, you know, global drug cartels and terrorists, you're not going to get charged. If you you know, and now it's like, you know, the informational equivalent in terms of leaks and who gets called to account for leaks. And maybe everybody should get called to account for leaks, or far fewer people should to begin with.